Jabber podcast. As always, we've got a really interesting conversation coming up today. It's kind of something new that we've never done before, really. We've never spoke about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and all the rest. So today we actually have a really special guest. He is the director of Bitcoin, the documentary. It's called Bitcoin, The End of Money as We Know It. Something that really kind of blew me away when I seen it. And then last year, 2020, kind of still feels like 2020. He released Cryptopia, which you can find on Amazon Prime. And both documentaries kind of just opened my eyes to like the possibilities of to what can be in our future when it comes to currency, because for some time now I've known about the Federal Reserve and
doing well.
Yeah, the Federal Reserve and the all out kind of scam that it is, and how it's kind of crippled everyone into poverty. J-Mac, I know that you're not as familiar with that kind of.
Absolutely not. I mean, I'll be honest, before I watched these two documentaries, I've never looked into cryptocurrency. It's always been something almost like a bit of a boogeyman in my mind. Like I've just been like, no, I can't deal with that. It doesn't make sense in my head how money can't really exist. It's just a digital thing. I'm like, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, most money is digital already anyway, so it's not that different. It's just that there's a lot of things different about what can go on in the background. So absolutely. Information overload, definitely. Yes. So I'm still very much a layman, but this will be good.
The great thing is that we have, an expert on that joining us on the show today. So us here and you guys at home, make sure to put your comments in the comment section, and we can definitely go ahead and ask it. Just before we bring Torsten on, I'm going to go ahead and show you Torsten in action.
Mark teaches a class on innovation and system building.
My name is Mark Ventresca. I'm here at Oxford, the University of Oxford, on the faculty. I'm an economic sociologist by training, interested in how large-scale infrastructure changes.
He tells me what must align for a new technology to become fruitful.
All technologies start out as interesting ideas. Some of them begin to develop into innovations, and we know that arc from invention to innovation takes a lot of time and takes a lot of work.
Case in point, the automobile. In the early days, cars looked like a pretty lousy idea.
The imagery here is there are maybe a couple of 300 or 400 companies that try to get into this space, but they're not car companies, they're bicycle manufacturers or steam engine manufacturers. At some point in this account, all that period of ferment settles around a dominant design, and then you have what innovation economists would call a shakeout. They would say you go from 300 or 400 producers, all of them vying to shape this emerging space, this emerging thing called the automobile. You may then drop to 20 or 30 manufacturers, and then you may drop to 5 or 6.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Torsten Hoffmann. Hi, Torsten. Can you hear us all right?
Good evening. Your start music, the little jingle that you have is awesome. I wanted to hear more of it.
Yeah, that's J-Max Creations, eh?
Cool.
No.
Yeah. Thanks,
I'm pretty sure we stole that from a kind of royalty-free sound bank, but we're all good.
Right.
So it's an absolute pleasure to have you here on the show. I mean, I pretty much. I was told about your documentary, and the first one I watched was the Cryptopia one that was on Amazon Prime. And I watched that and I was like, this is amazing. I straight away had texted my buddy Cole, who had put us onto you, and I was like, that's incredible. And then I went and checked the Bitcoin, The End of Money as We Know It. And have you heard the term going down the rabbit hole?
Yeah.
Now, I consider myself someone that kind of, I jump down the rabbit hole, but I come back. I don't allow myself to be consumed. But this for me was a fresh new rabbit hole to kind of, I'd already known a bit about that kind of, the Federal Reserve and what that kind of was, and how bankers are all for fisting folk. But it was refreshing to see it laid out. And what I really liked about it as well is I can say to my friends, watch this, and they can watch it and go, I get it now, because it's laid out so perfectly in the way that it does. So, sorry?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, before we get into that, I just want to kind of give the audience a bit of a background on yourself. So, yourself having an MBA in finance, and it seems that you're an author as well. I checked out a lot of your books on Amazon. So you've got kind of a colourful background. You don't like to stick in one kind of pigeonhole. You kind of go with the flow. And
yeah, but I mean, look, this is it's correct, and thank you again for having me here. Look, I think all of us are no longer, tied to one identity or one thing that we do or one career. And in fact, I think new people starting jobs now, they're expected to have maybe 20 different jobs that maybe in 10 different careers, something like that. And I'm very much one of those people. I'm a little bit of a consulting, a little bit of a management background, a little bit of a finance background, and in around 2012, 2013, I was actually working with a lot of documentary filmmakers as their kind of distributor and sales agent. And it was only a matter of time until I kind of jumped into filmmaking myself. Yeah. And I jumped into that rabbit hole, the same rabbit hole you just described in 2013. In 2014, January is when the production of Bitcoin, the End of Money happened. And another thing that I will say is, everyone, and Jay, you will maybe like this or connect to this. Everyone who hears about Bitcoin the first time thinks, oh, this must be a scam, right? And then the second time you hear about, it's still around, it must be a scam. Who's trying to take my money? And then it just takes a while, 5, 6, 7 times, and you read about it a little bit more and so forth. And like some of us are just a little bit earlier in that kind of learning process, or deeper in the rabbit hole than others. And hopefully my film or films have kind of helped.
There's actually a clip here that I can actually play, which describes that perfectly. The innovation of cars, and that's taken from Bitcoin. I'll just play that now for everybody to kind of get a background on that.
The benefit of the scaling debate or civil war was Bitcoin was battle tested. Like a lot of companies and a lot of powerful people tried very hard to try to change Bitcoin, and they failed.
This thing that Satoshi Nakamoto launched is much more resilient than anyone even hoped.
Yeah, so the idea of suppressing Bitcoin, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like I've spoken to a lot of friends on Bitcoin and like why it costs so much. And one of my friends had mentioned, because the bankers are the government and the bankers are pretty much in the same bed. And by making Bitcoin worth so much, by buying it up, then it means that we can't circulate it properly. So it can't do what it was intended to be done. Would you say that that's kind of...
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I think the market, just like any other open market, there's buyers and sellers, and whoever wants to buy it at a certain price, it's very, very highly liquid. It's still kind of manipulated because there's a few very large players who can kind of dump or buy a lot of Bitcoins. But the governments and the bankers have been very slow to adopt this whole thing, right? This came from like the crypto anarchist background, libertarians, drug dealers. Those are the early people, and not the governments. Our government's agency. So there's obviously a lot of conspiracy theories, and some of them may be true to some certain extent. But look, I've been looking into that space for 7 years now, and I think the governments have just generally not taken it seriously for so long, and now it's kind of almost too late. And regarding your other point, it's so expensive now. It is true, but I mean, just today I bought like $100 worth of Bitcoin, so it's kind of 0.001. So the price doesn't really stop you from buying, right?
I suppose it's just the kind of you're not able to buy a full Bitcoin, well, unless you've got a lot of money, which I kind of I suppose makes sense. So J-Mac, you yourself, you're not. So I latched onto the documentary and understood a lot of what was kind of coming from it. J-Mac, I think he represents the old guy in the corner that just wants to smoke his pipe and read the book. So it takes him a little bit longer to kind of.
That's I would say that's almost right. I do feel like the old guy sometimes, especially when I'm with Kevin. But the idea of a cryptocurrency, a currency that only exists in the ether, essentially, it's never computed in my head. Now, the one thing that I can't understand is, because it's a new system of currency, a new system of money, how can it be given a monetary value in the system of currency that we use right now? That might sound like a stupid question, but I think it's probably a question that a lot of people would have. How can you put a price on a cryptocurrency? How does that happen?
Yeah, no, that's it's a key question, and to be honest, like this whole concept of money is still kind of a mystery. It's kind of like what does Yuval Harari say? It's kind of like this community or illusion on a grand society scale, right? Because it's kind of it's trust-based, and we don't really know what money is, how it works. But to answer your question, I mean, look, anything can have value. I mean, the poster behind you, if it had like a Arnold Schwarzenegger signature on it, right? There's you can sell it for more than it does. So anything in this world has a value. And for Bitcoin, there's currently, if you add up all the Bitcoins, it's worth $1 trillion, right? Times all the Bitcoins that are out there. And there's millions and millions of transactions every day. So it's being traded similarly to big stocks on the stock market, even though of course it's completely different. And I like what you said in the beginning there about it's just in the ether. And you mentioned it earlier. I mean, if you really dig down into our current financial system, you start to realize, well, that's exactly what our euros or pounds are as well. They're just kind of printed out of thin air. They actually printed in such a way that it is debt on the government or on us taxpayers, right? And most of it, 97%, is just digits in some ledgers handled by the banks, by the central banks, and so forth. So why not have, in the age of the internet, have it all in one giant global database that we all own and run, and there's nobody in between, nobody from high up kind of deciding how much money we're going to print, right?
The way I think about it in my mind is the gold rush is over, right? I mean, you still get some gold mining, but not to the extent that it was happening, 100, 200 years ago. There's only a certain amount of gold that is in place for the governments to use as currency. There can't be that much left, considering how much the value of money has changed over time. The value of gold has changed. So, like you said, the money now, even the current system that we are using, it is invented. There's no such thing. When you get your paycheck every month, it is just a digital currency. Just because you can take it out of the bank in paper form.
And it used to be, I mean, thanks for mentioning gold, right? It used to be backed by gold, but that like some people still believe that's the case. No. It's literally it's just endless supply. In fact, in the last financial crisis 10, 12 years ago, they printed trillions of dollars, and now they're doing the same again with Corona and all these other programs, and it's literally backed by nothing. You said something else there that anyway, I'll let you. I'll just answer your questions. I think that's better than me going down rabbit holes that you might not want to go.
That's all good.
Please do.
Money obviously was like, and this is something that they don't really teach you in school. Certainly not here in the UK. But when you think of money, you think, well, this money is the money, but it was actually a promissory note, a notice to pay the bearer, because it was easier to just give someone the promissory note that you could collect to trade that. They became, you trade those pieces of paper so that if that person wanted to, they could go to the bank and take it out. And then I think, what was it? No one ever really went to take it out. So the banks were like, well, wait a minute, if no one's really taking it out, then, and my friend always said this to me, if like 3% of our population was to go and ask for the gold, like there would be hangings because it's not there. You know what I mean?
and nowadays, I mean, the gold tie is no longer in place, but even cash, there's not enough cash because 97% is just digits in the number. So if 3% of people ask for all their bank balances back, no, you can't. And that's also when you start to realize, hold on, I thought this is my money, right? But now you hear stories in the last 10 years. I've been hearing and following this very closely. Like PayPal says, look, if you are a cam girl and you are working in the adult industry, we don't serve you. You can't be on PayPal. Or if you are in Russia and the global community decides Russia is bad, then you get cut off the Visa and MasterCard system, right? Or if you are Wikipedia, what's that? WikiLeaks. Thanks, right? They got banned out of all the financial system because some governments didn't like what they were doing, and there was no court case. So I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying there's no global like court case. They were just shut off. So we see that these banks are actually kind of in control of our money, right? Like in some countries, that's even so bad that if I send from my bank account to a cryptocurrency exchange, the bank notices and says, sorry, we don't support cryptocurrency here. We don't want your business, go somewhere else. Thank you very much. And it's like, and that's the whole principle of cryptocurrency, that we don't rely on any third parties anymore.
It's kind of mad, isn't it? It seems that like we're at a stage now, and I said to my friend, because I've got a friend that kind of believes in buying gold and buying cryptocurrency stuff and has for some time, and I said to him after watching documentaries, I was like, we are at a very, very exciting time in life. Like, this is a very pivotal moment, or at least the next 20 years will be, right? Because this could be the changing of the world as we know it, like your documentary says, the end of money as we know it, but it could be a change of life completely. Because if people in third world countries have access to cryptocurrency, then, you know, we're going to have a fruitful world. And it's even to not go down the conspiracy kind of routes. Obviously, there's certain truths to what goes on in the world, but the banks run the world based on, you know, the money that they control, like you said there. So to take that power away from the people at the top of the chain, I don't see it. It's not going to be an easy ride at all.
Yeah, true.
We've seen historically what happens to people that try to do that.
True.
You know?
I look, I could say so much to it, but maybe this empowering of the poor, or empowering of the unbanked. So bank the unbanked. That's like one of the taglines of this movement. And there's certain truth to it. In my current film Cryptopia, I have this little story that there's a woman who in Afghanistan is not even allowed to have a bank account. She wants to divorce her husband because her husband is beating her. And because she's a blogger and she's getting paid in Bitcoin, she actually has the financial means to kind of, you know, get separated. So, or think of like a, I don't know, Nigerian boy who's 14 years old. He can't be banked other than with cryptocurrency, because nobody's asking you when you start your wallet. Nobody's asking you where you're from, whether you're in North Korea or in Nigeria or in London. Doesn't matter. And you're so right about like taking on the big banks and the big governments. I mean, this is going to be tricky. But the funny thing is, every time a government has tried to ban Bitcoin, and we just see like last week that happened in Turkey. So Turkey, a country with high inflation, nobody really trusts the government to, you know, with the currency. The Turkish lira has been a basket case for many years. They've exchanged the governor of the central bank like 5 times in the last 5 years, whatever that number is. The president goes and bans Bitcoin. What happens is everybody started to look on Google, or what's Bitcoin? Where can I get it? Right, and the price actually increases in those countries. A gray market pops up, and nobody can really ban it, because eventually it's just, you know, a password, right? How can you prevent someone to have private keys? So that's actually one of the reasons why Bitcoin might actually succeed, because it's almost impossible to kind of stop.
What happens if there does come a time where cryptocurrency does overthrow the entire system of currency that we know at the minute, and it doesn't have that monetary value anymore, and cryptocurrency is just the currency? Is it then at that point, is it still kind of protected from human corruption?
Yeah, good question. So first of all, I don't think that's going to happen or anytime soon. Maybe if you are in Venezuela and stuff like that, you could see something like that earlier. But look, in our world, the British pound and the banking system and the PayPal and Venmo and Revolut is good enough, right? There's no need for us to use a different kind of currency when we buy a coffee. And in that way, let's be honest, cryptocurrency has failed, right? It's been around for 12 years, but we're still not using it as a day-to-day thing. What the current use case for Bitcoin is more like a digital gold, like an investment asset, right? I mean, you've talked about your friends buying Bitcoin, buying gold because they don't trust. So I think that use case is slowly taking over, and I think that is going to work. To your question, whether is it immune to human manipulation? Look, I mean, It's pretty solid. I mean, you can ask me about the mining, you can ask me about the energy, you can ask me about all sorts of price manipulation. But I mean, it's been up and running for 12 years. It's unhackable. Bitcoin businesses are hackable, and people can lose their keys, and all that kind of stuff can happen. But Bitcoin itself as a system is kind of rock solid, and every day it grows and grows and grows. Right, 100 million people already own it, and there's no way stopping it. So yeah,
that's mad. So. A lot of the time, especially after watching your documentaries, I'll say to people, you need to check this out. It's about Bitcoin. And people are always like, what is Bitcoin? Because there really isn't a rollout of information unless you look into it, So if you were to describe, even to JMac, how would you describe what Bitcoin is for people that are watching at home? That right now, people will be watching this going, I don't know what Bitcoin is. So for a little bit of a background on Bitcoin, obviously I've seen the documentary, and this is why everyone at home needs to go home or needs to still be at home and then go to YouTube and watch Bitcoin, the End of Money as We Know It. Start there and then head over to Amazon Prime for Cryptopia. So if you could give them just enough to say, right, this is why you should check it out. How would you describe Bitcoin and cryptocurrency?
Yeah, it's funny, huh? We've been 25 minutes on the show. We still haven't explained what it actually is.
That's how we roll.
Yeah, and before I start, let me just say one thing. So there's a lot of misinformation on the internet about everything, right? About everything, really. But with this world, it's kind of dangerous to read untrustable sources, because everybody's now having their own coin, like the Kevin coin and Torsten coin, and everybody wants your money, right? So be super careful. I mean, Bitcoin is a real thing. Ethereum, maybe we can talk about that later. These are real massive assets with people behind it. But all these other things, everybody's saying, okay, this is going to be the next Bitcoin. Oh, buy in this thing. Be super careful. And none of what we are talking today is investment advice. So let's just be very
I don't think people come here for that.
Well, I mean, look, in the early days, who got really rich were the drug dealers who, just wanted to buy some cocaine for 4 Bitcoins, and whatever's left from that transaction now makes them a millionaire. I mean, it's just crazy. So who knows where people get their investment advice from. But yeah, look, I think the best way to explain it is really, so instead of having money that's issued by a government, that's kind of backed by, taxes and military power and like all of us behind it. And this is an internet native system. It's owned and operated by all of us. It's being run by hundreds of thousands of computers or tens of thousands of computers all around the world. It's one digital database, the blockchain, rather than having multiple ledgers and multiple blockchains, multiple ledgers and books run by governments and banks. So it's kind of it's almost like the logical internet currency in many ways. So it can't be stopped. Once I pay you, so I have a wallet, you have a wallet address. I know your wallet address because you can send it to me. It's like your email address. So it's public information. But only you have the private key, like the password, like an email again. So I can send something to you and nobody can stop it, right? It's even better than email, because email, there's Google and Yahoo and everyone in between. So once it's in the blockchain, that transaction is unstoppable. Nobody can stop it. And that's what makes it so powerful and also so scary, right? I leave it there. And because of that feature, and because of the fact that it's limited in supply, so it only has 21 million Bitcoins that will ever be out there. And at the moment, we're almost at 19 million already. That makes it valuable, because people know, okay, every 4 years there will be less and less available and fresh supply. So people speculate on, it might become more valuable in the future. And then people trade Bitcoins, and whatever the today's exchange rate is, people buy it.
Yeah, I can see that since Bitcoin, there are other, and I'm seeing it more and more now, a lot of different cryptocurrencies are popping up. For instance, I don't know if you've heard of one that's called BEE. It's BEE. And you can literally download an app on your phone, and you just press the button every day and it will mine BEE. So that's what it's called. Do you think that like the dollar, you got the Great British Pound, there are different currencies? Do you think that in the future what we will have will be Bitcoin, we will have BEE, Ethereum, that we will be trading it in different cryptocurrencies? Yeah.
It's a good question, because I think it's slightly different. So I think different use cases will have different kind of blockchains backing it. So for example, Bitcoin will, in my view, be the digital gold, will be like the global way how we value things. It's going to be like a reserve asset. Governments will start buying it. Companies have started. Tesla has put it on the balance sheet now, right? So it is like an asset. But I don't think people will use it as a currency. There might be some other 2 or 3 other cryptocurrencies that people will use on a daily basis, especially for international remittances, right? If your family is back in Bangladesh and you make money here, the exchange rates are way too expensive. With cryptocurrency, you can just do it for free instantly, right? So there are use cases for that. And there's other use cases. For example, recently we've seen this whole new trend of NFT or crypto art, right? People are selling digital art, and it's because it's on the blockchain, it's because it's unique. I can prove it's unique, it's valuable, and suddenly people like these digital artists are making a lot of money because people buy these artworks. And that blockchain might be completely different from Ethereum or Bitcoin. So there will be different use cases. But again, I personally don't think the pound or the US dollar will be replaced in the next 10 years.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's again the future, isn't it? I've got a couple of good friends that are really mad PC gamers, right? And then these, I can't name them, but this GT something graphics cards come out and then they get snapped up like that. And the reason I'm told is because the guys that are mining Bitcoin use these to mine Bitcoin. And I'm like, so wait a minute, you're telling me someone used a graphics card to get Bitcoin? Like, how does that work? How can a graphics card get you Bitcoin? I thought you had to buy it.
Yeah. Okay. Now we get a little bit technical, but I think it is interesting for the listener. So when I said earlier that Bitcoin is peer-to-peer, so the transaction between us, nobody can stop, right? This is true. However, you need like somebody to run this network, and it's the most powerful computing network on the planet. It's like I think 1 million times more powerful than the most powerful supercomputer that the NSA has, or something like that. It's crazy powerful, okay? Because it's run by 10,000 different nodes all around the world. And how do you incentivize these people to run these expensive machines and use a lot of electricity? Well, you have to give them new Bitcoin. So that's how Bitcoins are created. Every 10 minutes, one block is being formed, and whoever kind of happens to be in that network, happens to find that block, will get the reward. And this, so 2 things here. So first of all, there used to be a time between 2014 and 2017, maybe, where lots of graphic cards could get you Bitcoin. But now there's like specialized mining hardware, and you need millions and millions of dollars to be able to compete. So kind of that era of graphic cards being able to mine Bitcoin is almost over, at least for us consumers. And these are huge operations. Like friends of mine have like, in Iceland, where there's like free energy, they have like whole big mining farms just for mining Bitcoins. But the other thing to note is, so every 4 years, that Bitcoin reward halves. So in the beginning of Bitcoin, those computing miners got 50 Bitcoins every 10 minutes. Then 25, 12.5, now it's 6.25. And in 3 years' time, another halvening. So these halvenings basically mean that over time, the supply of new Bitcoins comes down, which in theory means the value should go up, especially if adoption increases and popularity increases, right? Which is exactly the opposite of what we do with our current money, right? Our current money, the supply goes up logarithmically. Like even like 5 years ago when I made the last film, it looked like this. Now it's like even triple the money. I mean, it's crazy. They print trillion out of nowhere, which means that the value goes down over time, right? So that's the idea, and that's why people think there's value behind it. But yeah, I mean, the network has to be powered by electricity and computing power. That's how it works. Yeah.
It's actually quite unfortunate when you think about what's actually happening to our own currency, and that no one's held accountable for it. Like, where's the TV trial for the guys at the top that are essentially making us poorer and we work harder? Like, J-Mac, you say this all the time on the show, that when you were growing up, one adult in the family could support the full family, but now it's not a thing. And that is attributed to the bankers. It is literally the bank. Are you aware of who Frankie Boyle is, Torsten?
Yeah.
He's a comedian here in Scotland, and he done a bit where he was talking about how the media likes to put different ethnicities together and say, here's why your money's inflating and all that. And then he just stops and goes, it was the fucking banks. It's like, they told you this. Do you know what I mean? So I mean, the information is out there. It just seems that, all right, fine, it's the banks. And like, you know, if I was to try and embezzle money in any way or go against what should be done, I'd go to jail. But it seems it's all right if you're at the top, right?
There's a saying in this community that's saying like, if the big guys, the big banks or big governments print dollars, that's completely fine. It's called quantitative easing. It's called, you know, central banking monetary policy. If you do it, it's what's it called? Forging money forging, and you go to jail. So same thing.
Exactly. It's actually, it's quite insane, isn't it? JMac, do you feel so far that you've kind of got to grips? Because I know JMac was finding it hard, even because I said to him, I was like, watch the documentary, you'll understand more about Bitcoin and what cryptocurrency is. And he was like, I'm still not getting it. And I think so far, have you kind of got a bit more of a grasp as to what cryptocurrency is?
I like to think of myself as a relatively intelligent person, but I think it's because I've got that old man mindset. It's like there can't be anything else except money. It can't, in my head, it can't work. But there's a lot of things that can't work in my head, but clearly do based on a lot of this shit that goes on in the world right now.
Yeah.
So
well, let's do your what are your top 3 questions? Let's see whether we can tackle the big unknowns. Yeah.
I think one of the ones already asked about if it was to take over completely, then what happens to its value? That was one of them. Do you think that it might ever have a physical form if it was to become kind of more widespread? Do you think there would be physical Bitcoin, so you could exchange it with people you know without having to go through a digital system? Or do you think it's always going to be like that?
No, there are projects that kind of make it into what's called like a bearer asset, so something that you can prove, okay, the private keys inside there, and you can kind of check with your QR code, right? Okay, it's actually still in there and stuff like that. But I don't think that's the purpose. And you know, to be honest. So in Cryptopia, in the production, we went into this Swiss bunker, you know, the nuclear grade bunker, and it is kind of ironic. I mean, let's be honest, and you're onto something there. Let's be honest. Okay, we're talking about the future and the digital currency and all that, but what are these billionaires doing with their Bitcoin? They're storing it off the internet, and it's literally like in words, written in words, or in this case, it's a server that's not connected to the internet, and protect and keep it off the internet. So it's a little bit ironic, right? But I mean. Cybersecurity is such that anything that's on the internet is a little bit dangerous. Not the Bitcoin system itself, but like if I stored my private keys or my passwords on my computer, and but just by surfing the internet, I kind of have a risk. So that's why these people go to extreme lengths to kind of secure their private keys, their passwords.
How in the hell did you get into that bunker?
I'm not allowed
I can't tell you. I'd have to kill you.
I gave them Bitcoin.
and I'm telling you, so it was like 5 or 6 of us, the crew, right, and flying the whole crew there, and like stopping our GPS from the passport checks and all that. I mean, it was ridiculous. And then through the whole process, which took weeks, and then by the time we're down there and then down the mountain and all that kind of stuff. Finally, he tells me, okay, so here are the servers. And I'm like, yeah, but these servers are blinking. I thought the real Bitcoin servers, the famous Bitcoin servers, are not connected to the internet. And even I know that when it's blinking, it's connected to the internet. And then he says, oh yeah, no, sorry, those servers we can't show you. We nobody even here, the security guards don't even get to go into that room. Like, no. So we had to kind of write this in the script to make sure, well, these aren't the actual servers, but it's sitting somewhere down here, not connected to the internet.
Yeah. Even when I was watching that bit of the doc, it was like, this is like something for a James Bond film. You go deep into a mountain to find these servers that are storing
Billions.
a currency that doesn't really exist in the eyes of the world yet properly. So what's going to happen with it? What is going to happen? Somebody's going to have to break in there at some point.
Yeah, even if they only have 1/5 of that private key, because the other 80% are stored on 4 other continents. So and you would have to do that within 10 minutes of each other, because it's all kind of interlocked and no, I think that's highly unlikely. And look, I think that it's really literally and he told me, so the company that runs this like vault system, he told me that we have the largest interest from people in Venezuela and Turkey and Argentina, those kind of countries where people don't have these questions like we do, because we grew up in kind of like a safe currency environment. But like my forefathers in Germany, the hyperinflation in, I don't know, 1930s, they would have known, just like the Argentinians today or the Turkish people today know that, the government is kind of playing with us and with inflation. So I think we are like a little bit behind in our understanding of what money actually is.
Yeah. That's if you were to speak to the average person, like our wives or whatever, and say, do you know what the Federal Reserve is? They're like, the what? Do you know what I mean? They're probably going to think that is something for James Bond. And again, I think that all goes down to what we're being taught, because we're not taught the things that we feel that we're being taught in school, and then you leave school and then you kind of get into the adult life. You're like, well, if I'd known this, like if I'd learned this from school, that would have been pretty cool. So it's kind of one of those things where, how much do they want you to know, really? If you're gonna, hey, watch this hand slap. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's pretty much what it is. And that when you're in that bunker, did the guy actually say to you that he'd be happier to shoot you than to let you into the bunker? Because I think
we had a lot of fun script writing, and my co-director Michael is just a genius when it comes to those kind of like funny notes, and there's a lot of inside jokes in Cryptopia, especially because that community is very well versed technically, and I'm trying to get this, but also make it accessible for normal people. And actually, that film is just now we scored a few big TV deals, so we will be on Al Jazeera, which is like 250 million TV households in Middle East and North Africa.
Wow.
Largest TV channel in Norway, Israel, Croatia, I think already broadcasted us, and then 5 or 6 other countries. So we are getting the deals out there. So it's not only the digital platforms, but even like proper TV channels are interested in the topic. And one of the co-founders or co-producers, as it's called for us, is the public German broadcasting system. So they took Cryptopia, the 86-minute version, and narrowed it down to like a TV-friendly 50-minute version. They translated everything in German for me, which is a bit weird to hear myself with a different voice in German. But anyway, so it is reaching bigger and bigger audiences. And look, the film is an investment device. I'm not saying, look, this is the future, but it's just a way, start asking questions and start questioning what the banks or the governments are doing, right?
I just want to say congratulations on that, because that's not easy to get your film out there that in such a wide community. That's amazing. I mean, Amazon Prime, I know that it is a platform that can get your work out there, but it's not particularly lucrative from what we've heard in the past from other independent filmmakers. So if you can get it beyond Amazon Prime and into the big networks, that's amazing. So congratulations. That's great.
Absolutely. I did think when I watched that bunker scene, I was like, this must have been a task to really, get that going. And I thought to myself, what were your other challenges when you were making this documentary? Did you get any pushback from anywhere other than obviously the bunker maybe not letting you straight into where the actual server is? Because I imagine it wouldn't have been easy trying to make a documentary about Bitcoin.
Yeah. So the two challenges come to mind. So one is, of course, there's so much happening every day, right, in this space, and you don't want to you don't want to compete against podcasters or like YouTube channels that can actually cover the day-to-day activities. So you want to kind of feature projects and themes that are important. Like when I talk about bank the unbanked, right? Or peer-to-peer digital cash. I mean, those are topics that's still going to be around in the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, right? But still, I mean, honestly, I could have done, covered maybe a little bit more of these artists that are now making money with crypto art or NFTs as they're called. So I think that selecting the right topics was one. And the other tricky one was there's actually a pretty ugly fight or civil war going on within the crypto community. And at the time when I made it, there was this big discussion. So is Bitcoin a digital currency? Is it digital peer-to-peer cash? Because that's how it was originally designed, if you're honestly reading the original documentations. But now it's become digital gold. So one is you want to spend it and use it as currency, and one is no, you never want to spend it. You want to keep it in a bunker and get rich from it, right? So it's completely two different competing visions of it, right? And now we can see, because every day both of these versions of Bitcoin are being traded every day, millions and millions of dollars. And we can say that the digital gold case has won out. It's like 99% of the market cap, whereas the digital cash side is only 1%. So the market seemed to have decided, well, digital gold is that what we're going for.
Yeah, it's a fun time to kind of be in existence. I kind of had spoke to actually J-Mac's sister yesterday and was telling her that where we're at in life, really, right? So the generation where we are the only generation that will really know what it's like to not have the internet, right? And beyond that now, every other generation going forth has never known what that's like. So I think it's very pivotal at this point, and we're going to see, well, hopefully we're going to see in the next, I say, 20 years where, like, because we're seeing a complete change of the world because of the internet. And if you look how quick that's happened, you would be insane.
You really should be reading The Fourth Turning, that book, because you seem to be really into these big societal historic changes, and I'm a big fan of this Fourth Turning, the book. But actually, on that generational bit, friend of mine just told me that his daughter, I don't know, she's 12 years old. She plays games on Roblox or one of those I don't know, internet platform. I don't even know what it is. And he basically says, well, look, she's trading digital goods all the time. She's creating them and then selling them or giving them away. So for this generation, it's totally normal to have digital scarce items that have value, whereas we still like have to construct all these like analogies and metaphors and create movies about it to understand it, whereas maybe the younger generation, for them it's just kind of natural. It's just it's a digital native currency for the internet.
Yeah, it's mad. We have a comment here from our good friend Cole McNeely. J-Mac, I think this one's for you. Read it out.
Think about how much we take for granted the seemingly incomprehensible power of the internet that we utilize every day. For example, I, an American, helped facilitate a show between two Scots and a German Australian-based filmmaker who is currently in London. The idea that these three would then do a live show from 3 different residential locations would sound like science fiction only a few decades ago. That's true. We've come so far in such a short amount of time when it comes to get back.
See, we all know he's an old man.
Yeah.
No, it's a great interesting point that Cole says, to be honest, because that's kind of stuff you would see in Star Trek, right, when you were a kid. You know,
totally. And by the way, in a lot of these science fiction shows and novels, they had some sort of like internet cash or digibucks or whatever it's called, basically Bitcoin, right? And Cole is so right. So he's a friend, and he's actually helping Cryptopia film with some of our marketing activities. He just pointed to something actually pretty profound about these countries, right? That we are grown up, like we are grown up with these kind of ideas of countries, but also they are just kind of mental constructs in many ways. And it doesn't really matter where I am or you are at the moment. I could be anywhere and having this conversation. And our money, though, remains shackled to these old institutions and banks and governments, and like this whole currency conversion thing. Today I took a walk here, and you still see those currency exchange people, right? And they charge like 20% for if you want to exchange dollar to pound or whatever it is. I mean, it's just the old world still haven't really caught up with the modern times, and I think cryptocurrency and blockchain technology is like one of those 3, 4, 5 major shifts that are going to be transformational.
Yeah, I mean, think of it as well. Even growing up, I remember the very first time I was able to pay for something using my card online. I was like, I was like, what is this sorcery? So I just put this digit in, and wow, my money's gone, and my item will arrive in 39 days. That sucks.
Yeah, Amazon has us completely spoiled in so many ways, and not always for the better.
Yeah. Look, I was, my first job was kind of in the new economy, where everything would be online soon, and like the old economy doesn't matter anymore. Everything will move online. And of course, it was 20 years too early, and the whole .com crash came afterwards. But actually, at that time, if you read the coverage, people were saying, well, the internet, that's just for dodgy businesses. Don't ever use your internet, your credit card on the internet, because it will get hacked. And these kind of criticisms about new technology. Same with the automobile 150 years ago, which is a case study in both of my films. We are always skeptical. There's always like the forces at play that wants to keep things as they are. But then when change comes, it comes quickly. And now Amazon is much more powerful than 20 years ago the utopians would have imagined.
Yeah, I actually have a clip here that illustrates that. That is from the documentary. I'll just play that now.
I look for colleagues to join with me in introducing a bill to outlaw cryptocurrency purchases by Americans, so that we nip this in the bud, in part because not an awful lot of our international power comes from the fact that the dollar is the standard unit of international finance and transactions, and it is the announced purpose of the supporters of cryptocurrency to take that power away from us.
Cryptocurrency represents a litmus test for governments. It reveals how much your government believes in the fundamental freedoms and human rights. Because if they don't trust their own citizens to have control over their own money, that says a lot about the government, says very little about cryptocurrency.
That asks a big question there, really.
Yeah. So can I just jump in there, right? Straight. So this was a senator, and funnily, I think he actually represents California, but also his major donation funders are like the financial institution and financial services industry. So he's kind of anti-Bitcoin. But at the same time, the last election, someone from Wyoming got into the Senate, and she's like a major Bitcoin enthusiast. There's big positions now being filled in the Biden administration by people who used to work for Coinbase or like big crypto companies. And then then you have like cities within the country competing against each other. So most famously, Miami is now the new thing. Like everybody wants to leave San Francisco because San Francisco is too expensive and things are going wrong. And Miami is attracting a lot of these companies and entrepreneurs and innovators. And the mayor of Miami is basically saying, look, we're going to pay everyone in Bitcoin that works for the city. We want to make this the crypto capital of the world, And so basically within, you always have these, forces pro and against. But to think that actually a government or America can like ban Bitcoin, no, there's like too many vested interests. There's too many companies. In fact, Coinbase, the IPO just last week, it's $100 billion company. I mean, you don't want to throw out the innovation and all the gains that your country gets from that technology.
Yeah, I think what he said illustrated the American sentiment or attitude that the Americans should have the most power in the world. And to me, I don't understand how one of the youngest countries in the world should have the most power, and it's something they seem to be very keen to cling on to. And if that means trying to nip it in the bud, then that's what they intend to do. I think they're scared. They seem to be scared that some radical change is coming, and understandably. I mean, I think if I was sitting in that seat, I'd be like, "Oh shit, something's coming." So yeah, you can kind of understand their fear, but unfortunately, those people are the ones that their voices are put out there the most by the mainstream media. So that's what we all end up seeing and thinking. But there is an awakening happening that not everything you see in mainstream media is the right way of thinking. So
absolutely right.
There is no question in there. I'm sorry about that. I was just having a thought.
Which, by the way, is actually that's a nice segue to So Cryptopia, the full title is called Cryptopia, Bitcoin, Blockchains, and the Future of the Internet. And the future of the Internet is often called Web 3.0. And that is exactly about what you just said about media and maybe not trusting the Amazons, the Facebooks, right? And now even Twitter. Twitter has censored anyone from Trump to, left, right, and center, right? So can we maybe use this uncensorable technology that is powering Bitcoin? Can we use the blockchain to build a better internet, to build maybe social media platforms where you actually are 100% in control of your domain and nobody can censor you, and nobody can ever delete what was said, right? Because it's kind of kept in the blockchain as a proof of record. And those projects are now coming online. So we've been talking about them for 5 years, but now they start to appear. And that's why a lot of those speculators are kind of thinking, oh, the next Bitcoin, the next Ethereum will be this. But again, 9 out of 10 will fail, but the one that will succeed will be massively succeeding and maybe giving us better media or better e-commerce or better email or whatever those use cases may be.
Yeah, and in the documentary there is the story of the girl who was trying to basically make a complaint to her college about a sexual assault, and it kept getting censored. So she put it in the blockchain, and now it's out there. It was the only way she could get out there. That's scary shit. The fact that that's the only way that she could actually have her story heard.
Right, but imagine, so that's a Chinese story, right? And imagine being the Chinese Communist Party who doesn't allow any divergent views. I mean, that is scary for them, very, very scary, right? But even China is using blockchain technology. They will basically they are digitizing their currency. They're actually the furthest country along with kind of like a blockchain based crypto yuan or whatever it may be, and there's tons of mining activity in China. There's tons of big crypto companies in Hong Kong and Shanghai. So even there, where the government has plenty to lose, right? There's tons of activity.
Mm-hmm. What would you say could be the possible kind of negative aspects of it? I mean, the documentary exposes it's all the positives, really, and everything has to have positives and negatives. Can you see any negatives when it comes to cryptocurrency?
Yeah, no. Thanks for asking this. Actually, I should have a better prepared answer, but let me just brainstorm a little. Look, the Bitcoiners that I've been following, they're ultra rich, right? Because they got in early. The earlier you get, the richer you are, and they have a very libertarian bent to them. And basically, we don't need governments, and we don't need anyone. We don't need to pay taxes and stuff like that. So if you think that further, right? You're gonna have the same or even a worse situation where you have ultra rich, right, and the rest. It's like completely hopeless. And the idea that we don't need governments to build roads or to have policing and everything is a free market is, I think, a little bit naive and a little bit dangerous. So that'll be one. And look, I am a free market guy through and through, right? But I mean, it is still a little bit troublesome that that large amounts of wealth can be transferred for illegal purposes as well, right? So the money laundering that now at least gets tracked through the banking system. I mean, the banks get away with murder, and we kind of accept that, and they get fined every once in a while. But at least there's some accountability. But in blockchain land or in Bitcoin land, there's no accountability. So I think that is a little bit tricky. And there'll be 2 points, but I'm sure we can think of more if we had more time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's what you just said there about we just accept the fact that the banks just shaft everybody, and that's the way life is. And the fact that they actually plan for fines in their budgets, they plan for fines. That's
in fact, every time there's a big fine announcement, right? Okay, the biggest fine, $2 billion, because they manipulated the foreign exchange market. They manipulated the LIBOR market. Every time these fines are announced, the stock market price goes up because finally this is out of the system. Okay, the fine has been paid. We can go back to making money. And it's like, in terms of a percentage, it's just ridiculous. And it's not only that. So, I mean, we already know they kind of make make money for themselves, not for us, their customers, right? We accept that, but it's even worse because the banks are facilitating the big money launderings, the drug traffickers, the drug lords, and even human trafficking. I mean, it's all being done through the financial system, right? And now, of course, some of these illegals are also using cryptocurrency. No doubt about it. Sure.
Yeah.
God, I had someone saying there a fine is just the cost of doing business. We have a couple questions here from our listeners here. So we have one from Sebastian Kalwicki. So he says, some countries currently trying to issue a cryptocurrency. Will Bitcoin not be a threat to them?
Hi, Sebastian. Super good question. But I mean, I have a very strong opinion on this, and actually, I'm pretty confident that this will proven to be right. So, do you trust Boris Johnson coin? Like really, right? Or what about Chairman Mao or Xi or Putin? Right? I mean, these are the most powerful people in the world. Merkel, I don't know, maybe you're German, Merkel Mark or whatever, right? I mean, maybe for a while, maybe some people, but I think all these activities, even when Facebook kind of tried to launch something, all these activities just mean that more people start to take the technology seriously, look into it, read into it, and Bitcoin is the big 800-pound gorilla. It's been around the longest. Nobody can manipulate it. It's unhackable. Nobody can dilute the market cap. It's kind of it's the real deal, right? And also these cryptocurrencies that are issued by central banks or by governments, their purpose is different. Their purpose is to keep a stable kind of, $1 is $1, one digital dollar or one digital pound. So that's not what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is kind of like a peer-to-peer transactional thing. That's also digital gold, but people speculate on becoming rich, right? People buy it and they don't want to sell it. So it's a completely different use case. And I would argue it's an on-ramp to Bitcoin.
Right, nice. We have a super fan here called Heather Dow. She asks, how do you know if a Bitcoin transaction is legitimate? There are so many fake companies out there stealing innocent people's money.
True.
Yeah. And by the way, even like on my Facebook feed or on Twitter, you see fake accounts that look legitimate because they use the same images and almost the same name, but like one little bit is different. And then they say, okay, send me Bitcoin here and I'll double your money, and like all this kind of stuff. I mean, if it smells scammy, it is very, very likely a scam, especially in cryptocurrency land. So there's tons of scammers, no doubt about it. Even on the app market, I'm sure like if you misspell Coinbase or like blockchain.com, you spell it wrongly, you end up installing some malware for sure. But in itself, for people who know about it, for companies that you can trust and you have your Bitcoins with them, there's no way to ever fake a Bitcoin transaction. You can in real time see. I mean, we should have prepared this actually. I should have sent you $1 or something, and then we could look at it on the blockchain, and nobody can ever reverse it. I mean, that it is a solid system. But the social engineering around it is a bit difficult, especially for beginners who are like overwhelmed with information. Yeah.
I have another question here via Discord from the Bobber. It says, "What's your opinion?" Sorry, I was going to. What's your opinion on putting property onto the blockchain in order to stop it being stolen with fraudulent mortgages via banks and council tax, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, this is. Let me try to explain it to the listener who might not be familiar. So if we can put this token that we call Bitcoin on the blockchain, it's limited and it has a value. Why can we tie cannot we tie something else to that token, right? For example, a piece of digital art. We talked about this a little. And why can't it be a Tesla stock certificate? Because at the moment, if I buy Tesla stocks, it's via my investment bank and a broker and a middleman, and then 3 other exchanges, and they close at 4:00 in the afternoon on Friday. What the hell? That's like so totally old school. So why not do it directly? And these things are already happening. I mean, I can trade a lot of stocks via these crypto platforms. So why not do it with your house certificate and or your any item, right? I can tokenize this cup, and people are doing that, and that's actually a lot of attention going into this. And in a way, the blockchain would be much better than your land registry in your home country, maybe, because in the history of over centuries and centuries, like all these land reforms have shown that actually, the tracking of the land is actually not as trivial as we might think. But I'm a little bit skeptical, because what's being traded is kind of like a digital receipt to this object, right? You're not actually trading this cup or your house. You're trading the proof that you own the certificate of the house. So if something goes wrong and then you sue someone or something like that, will that transaction actually be enforceable or not? I'm not so sure. I mean, I think it's way more complicated than people realize, and that's why I'm also not so bullish on all these crypto art NFT pieces, because it's actually not trivial to differentiate between the digital receipt of something and the digital art, and then it's tricky.
He actually, in response to that, says, but at the moment, everything is like that anyway, in Wall Street, etc. It would need to come under common law. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, we here in this chat, the three of us probably agree that we don't trust the Wall Street bankers. But if you do a global survey, I think
I'm pretty sure Wall Street banker is rhyming slang.
Yeah. I'm sure, like on a grand average, people would still trust that system more than like some crazy blockchain world, right? So I mean, we are still early days, but look, he's completely right. He's completely right.
So there is the potential, and this is kind of how it was kind of laid out to me, the potential for like a completely different future based on just something like Bitcoin could mean that, now this again, people depends on who you are and what you believe, but some people believe that taxes are theft, because a lot of people say, it's not my job to make sure someone else is all right. I make sure I'm all right and I do the work and I get, and that's a whole other kind of thing. But if Bitcoin comes in to play, say even 30 years from now, because like you're saying, there's a lot of gray areas and a lot of things that people would have to sit down around the table and be like, right, what are we doing with this, to hash it out. But am I right in saying that everything would be optional about what you do with your Bitcoin? So the government couldn't just take your Bitcoin as a tax? Because I got a national insurance number when I was 16. I went to work and money came out of my account. I never, it's not something that I got, would you like to pay tax? Because here's your options if you do, and here's your options if you don't. That was never the question. It was, you're working now, we're taking your money. So
right.
That kind of thing.
I have two comments, one positive, one negative on that note. So going back to our friend Sebastian, who wants Boris Johnson coin, right? Making fun of you, mate. Sorry. But I mean, just imagine, right? With a system like this, a government-controlled system, they could just take off your taxes, right? Like out of all wallets, 20% or whatever, right? I mean, nobody would put their life savings into that technology. Which can't happen in Bitcoin. So that's maybe the one note. And then hold on, I had you just said something else on everything is optional. Yeah, I mean, most governments actually still treat Bitcoin transaction as capital gains. So if I bought at $100 and sold at $100,000, I have $99,000 of profit, which I need to pay 25% to the government in most countries, right? Now you can escape taxes. Maybe you're lucky and you're not registered in that country. Maybe in your country that's not the case. But most governments already treated it just as if you sell art or a house, right? Some people do it illegally or gray market, and some people think you can get away with it. But technically speaking, the government still hunts you down.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier on with the separation between let's say real world currency and cryptocurrency. If a cryptocurrency has a real world currency value, is it a cryptocurrency? Do you know what I mean? It's I don't know. It's all a lot of grey area. And like I said, I am so new to this that you can't believe it. Like watching your documentaries was my first taste of anything to do with cryptocurrency. So I'm still very much at the bottom of the ladder of knowledge. But I'm definitely I'm going to spend more time looking into it. It's definitely an interesting thing.
So there's this saying in this community that says, well, I don't care what the dollar price is, because one Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin, right? So I only see the price of the dollar going down. I don't see the value of Bitcoin going up. For me, I live in that world. I spend all I earn in Bitcoin and I spend in Bitcoin. But I think, you know, that is like a super small proportion of the world, and I like I said, I don't think that this is coming so fast, especially in countries in the West. Plus, exactly what you said, you still need to eat, you still need to pay your rent, right? So you need to convert into kind of pounds eventually. So that bridge is still there.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if a landlord was to say, right, you owe me £600, I'd be like, I can send you a really secure email if you want. It's like, what? That's not money. But there has to be some kind of radical change for it to happen. But like you said, I think what you're saying about it not working in the West or kind of more lucrative countries is probably true. But if you can get to the point where somebody living in Uganda or something can trade in Bitcoin using a mobile phone, life could improve a lot for these people.
Right. And this 14-year-old Ugandan girl, right? She can also lend her ether or speculate with derivatives and do like the crazy stuff financial hedge funds can only do, or big institution with cryptocurrency and like smart contracts and all this technology that this decentralized finance system is being built on. Anyone can do anything like that, right? It's still early days, but I think we are going to see that world. But for you and I, we're not, you know, financial traders or experts or computer programmers, right? For most people, I think the way to think about it is, because I hear you like asking, is this a thing? Is it not a thing? Let's just simplify it and maybe just say this. If you are a little bit skeptical of what's going on with our financial system, if you not 100% trust your banks or central bankers or politicians, then Bitcoin may be a hedge, a bet, a financial bet for a different future, right? And if you look at the last 10 years, Bitcoin has performed worst in 2 of these years. So it was the worst asset you can have. And in 8 years, it was the best. Right, so 8 out of 10, 2 out of 10, and it is not for the faint-hearted, but it is not unreasonable, I believe, to put a little bit of your money just as a kind of insurance policy, right? If you have some financial assets, and I think that's what more and more people are saying, and even banks are now coming out with analyst reports saying, yeah, this might be digital gold, might be worth your attention. Even you know, in the Wall Street Journal and things like that, you hear more and more of these voices. I've been watching it for 7 years, and it is becoming a thing for sure.
There's a thing called Coinbase. I think you had kind of said about that earlier, and that's I'm right in thinking that's the wallet in which you can bring your Bitcoin. Now the Bobbitter again from Discord had mentioned that maybe that is where your taxes would come off, somewhere like Coinbase, because if the government get a hold of Coinbase and it's like, well, when Bitcoin move through Coinbase, maybe they can shave a bit off. Do you think there's a possibility in that Coinbase could be the place where that kind of happens?
Yeah. So to explain, so Coinbase is one of many cryptocurrency exchanges. It's basically the place where you go to put your dollars or pounds in, and then you get your cryptocurrencies. Usually Bitcoin is the first one, but there's a few others. And it's kind of like a Bitcoin bank or like a crypto bank, which is kind of funny because we've been wanting to get rid of banks, and now we have these crypto banks. But I mean, that's where you get it, right? And then ideally, you would then save your Bitcoin yourself, keep your private keys with you and not with Coinbase. But I mean, your question remains: could that be the point of where the government attacks? I mean, technically, maybe yes, but Coinbase is active in 120 countries, and Revolut or Robinhood or Wells Fargo, or wherever you have your stock trading accounts, usually the government doesn't like confiscate your money here. If you're an illegal money launderer or terrorist, then maybe they can freeze accounts and go through the court system and freeze your account. But usually it is up to you to declare your taxes. That's in most countries how it goes, right?
I see. So in response to that, the Bobbitter says Coinbase removes the anonymity putting you
Anonymity.
anonymity. Sorry, putting you back into the legislation type system. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, these cryptocurrencies exchanges now are fully regulated, and what I just explained. So once I send money for my credit card or for my bank account to Coinbase, I mean, that's all tracked. All financial transactions are tracked, right? And that is true. And if you're getting caught with some crime, they will come after you. And in fact, there have been government cases and FBI cases where bitcoins have been seized and have been kind of frozen. For a small proportion of time. Then again, if you have trading gains, you're meant to pay taxes for it, right? But a lot of people that I talk to, and they use this digital gold use case, they never trade or buy and sell, right? They just buy and keep it and sell. So they never sell. So there's never really a capital gains tax, unless maybe in 10 years' time. And then you have to maybe worry about paying taxes.
I think
I've got a message here on through Facebook from Laura Graham, who says that we'd mentioned earlier on that people are not using cryptocurrency for day-to-day spending. Then she said the music school which we use now accepts cryptocurrency for payment or for lessons and stuff. So obviously there are some exceptions to that, but I think on the grand scale of things, it's still not really in kind of wide use for day-to-day spending. Would that be right, Torsten?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I mentioned that earlier when I talked about this crypto civil war. Is it cash? Is it gold? And let's be honest, we're still not using it. So last 12 years have proven that it's maybe not a currency, or at least not yet, and not for us. But there are a few cryptocurrencies that are kind of focused on that use case. So the currency, the coffee shop use case, and they are super cheap, super fast, super convenient. They have apps and all that kind of stuff. So it's coming around. And then some companies also accept Bitcoin, the classical Bitcoin, like Tesla and many other companies. But in my film Cryptopia, I have this quote, which is just it's one of the greatest quotes. It's basically, I bought a cup of coffee for Bitcoin in 2013, and now this coffee cup cost me $25,000 because the price increase. So if you experience that, right, then why would you spend your Bitcoin? Maybe use other currencies that don't appreciate in kind. Maybe you can use your Boris Johnson coin for that transaction.
That's some good coffee. I think the cool thing, correct me if I'm wrong, the cool thing I think about the emergence of cryptocurrencies is it will bring everybody back to the drawing board, and those conversations will kind of have to happen. It's like almost hitting the reset button, right? So taxation, how do we do it? Do we do it? How does this mold our society going forth? Does everybody kind of take the conservative route where it's like you work for what you get, and if you don't work, you don't get, kind of thing? Like, there's a benefit system in the UK, right, where our tax money goes to that. So if we all just decide, I'm keeping my Bitcoin, I've earned it, I'm not paying anything, does this benefit system exist? How do we look after the vulnerable? All these, I think it will maybe come in stages, but all these conversations will have to happen at some point, and I think it's interesting.
I really like you are really like a societal generation kind of thinker. I love that, and maybe you're right, but it's so hard for us to even know what's going to happen in 5 years. And again, people have been telling me this for the last 7 years, that Bitcoin will change everything and overthrow governments and stuff like that. But what has actually happened is people got very rich with Bitcoin. They never sell it, and it becomes like this financial asset, which is kind of like, okay, there's many other assets. There's art, there's real estate, there's stocks, and now there's Bitcoin, crypto. So it's kind of it's been slotted into the existing system. But you're right. Like fundamentally, the technology has much more disruptive power.
Absolutely.
Could you imagine though that just say that the government says, right, we're getting rid of currency, we're getting rid of the pound, we're getting rid of the dollars, everything's a Bitcoin now, and then you get your first paycheck and it's 0.001 Bitcoin. You would just look at that and go, I liked 1,000 better.
That's, by the way, a very common trick in cryptocurrency. So there's about 3,000 different cryptocurrencies being traded on all these exchanges, right? And a common trick with scammers or with like not so serious cryptocurrencies is they just say, okay, well, Bitcoin has 21 million coins. Why don't I create Torsten coin? And I say 21 trillion coins. That means the price of each one will be so small, so it looks cheap. Right, that is like a psychological thing, and even in the stock market that happens with the stock splits. Right, so when the stock gets too expensive, they split it, and so it looks cheaper again, and people kind of react to it, even though nothing has really changed except the decimal point.
Yeah.
It's a big chess game and making money, isn't it? It's so obviously you have an MBA in finance, so you're qualified to talk about financial stuff. Did like because you said you were around people that made documentaries. What made you? Was it just basically the fact that, well, wait a minute, our bankers are acting like something that rhymes with bankers, and I really want to kind of
Anchors?
expose this a little bit. Anchors, yeah. And was that your kind of statement that you wanted to kind of make these documentaries? You were like, right, because I totally, if I was in your shoes, that's probably what I would do as well. I mean, I know a lot about music and movies and stuff, and if I wanted to go, there are certain ways I know that, hey, if I'm doing this, I'm doing it on that first because I've got a hunger for it. Was that your? Did you want to kind of be part of the revolution that is Bitcoin?
Yeah, look, it's very much the rabbit hole story that you described for yourself. For me, it was 2013, and I kind of connected it to something that I studied about alternative currencies a couple of years earlier. So for me, it kind of clicked relatively quick, and I'm like, oh, this is so complicated. Maybe that's a good topic for a film. And actually, my first film, Bitcoin: The End of Money, as we know, is mostly about money and banking and how it works and how people don't realize how screwed up the system is, and only a little bit about Bitcoin. And it just went very well. So a lot of people watched it. We won a few awards. It was my first film, and it went very, very well. And then a couple of years later, it was time for a follow-up because the industry has grown 100 times. You know, the price has grown by 100 times. So it was time for a bigger production. The first one was a low budget, kind of amateur level, but it's informative. And the next one is much more theatrical, goes on the big platforms and TV channels, so much more presentable and a bigger budget as well.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly stands out. I mean, the topic of finance can be somewhat dry, and you know, it's hard to keep somebody's attention with it. But the Cryptopia it's so snappy, and it keeps grabbing your attention just by using different cutaways and animations and stuff like that. How involved were you in that process of? I mean, I know that obviously it was your thing. You are at the forefront of it. But when it came to the animations, the cutaways, stock footage, stuff like that, how much say did you have in that process?
Yeah, so for this film, I was actually the writer, producer, director, and the presenter. So kind of like the whole way. But it's too easy to get a big ego because my name is on it and stuff like that. Because if you look at the credits, there's like hundreds of people involved. Like I obviously am not an animator, right? I'm obviously not a professional narrator or a music composer. So there's hundreds of people, and especially the core team. My co-director and then the executive producers, people who funded it on Kickstarter. I mean, this is like a whole big project that took 2 years almost to make.
Wow, that's insane. It's something that when I watched it straight away, I was like, this is brilliant. And I said to my group of friends, guys, you need to check this out. And I was surprised when one of my friends was like, mate, I shared this all over social media like a year ago. I was like, this is brilliant. And I think that does have that kind of, when you watch that, because of how it is, and this is to encourage people to go and watch it, because of how informative it is about the system we already are in place. And I would imagine that the percentage of people that don't actually understand how the currency system works is probably a really large one, especially when you consider that.
I'm thanks so much for saying that, and thanks to your mate. I have to send him a beer or something. But it's actually a good lesson in filmmaking. And now I sound like I have figured it all out. I kind of stumbled on it by luck, to be honest. But it is really a good recipe for independent filmmakers like myself to find one niche and do that niche as good as well as you can, and find your target audience, and then that audience will tell their friends, and it becomes kind of like a viral thing. And I just saw Amazon statistics. I think we're getting up to 1 million minutes viewed per day. So I mean, it is massive, and people do share it. And then I'm making, like, on my website, like every day a couple of people pay $5 on it. So I'm not getting rich from it, but it is a sustainable model. And the TV deals, again, each individual one doesn't really recoup all my expenses and my time. But over time, hopefully it will be. And Bitcoin, the End of Money is a good example. So it's a 5-6 year old film now. But last year, it still got 2 million views on YouTube. We finally released it on YouTube and licensed it to a channel. So those topics have longevity, which is nice.
Oh, absolutely.
What was your difference in your expenditures and budgets between the first film and the second?
Yeah, 10x or something like that.
Wow.
It's hard because most of the time, most of the thing is just my own time, and I don't really calculate that into the budget. But even production wise, I mean, there's all 4K cameras, and the helicopter shots and the Swiss bunker scene. I don't even want to remember how much that was to produce. But at the same time, I also had proper support the second time. The first time was really just me and some Kickstarter supporters. The second time, I had Screen Australia, so that's a film commission. I had the German broadcaster. I had some other investors in it, so it was possible to do a bigger budget.
That friend that I told you about that had shared your work previously, upon you saying that, he responded saying, as Henry Ford said, if people know how the banking system worked, there would be a revolution in the morning.
In no time. Yeah.
So
right.
I mean, there's the part where I think it was in the first documentary where it breaks down how the bank uses your money to create more money that doesn't exist, and it's fascinating. It's like you put $10 in the bank, they will lend that $10 to 10 other people. It's crazy, man. The whole system is.
On that side, it's crazy, but on the other side, it's also crazy. So let's say you want to buy a house for, let's make the numbers easy, for $1 million, right? You have, let's say, the salary or the banking. So you think the bank actually has that $1 million. That's not true. That bank is being created out of nothing based on your promise to pay back. So it's wrong to assume that only the governments print money by the trillions, which is true. Also, the private banking system does that. So on that side, like on the they give you money, but then if you give them money, they don't use it once; they use it like 10 times. I mean, it's just crazy, and that's why. I mean, the more I read about it, I couldn't believe it. And there's so much literature, but I think my film is one of the few that actually breaks it down. And I think that's why it's still relevant, because it's mostly about money and banking and the history of it.
It paints a really pretty picture and tells you in black and white almost, here's what's going on, and I think that's very informative. And that's why I said initially that we're not taught these kind of things in school, and it is like it's down to filmmakers like yourself and people that do get educated in those kind of areas to say, this is what's going on. I think it was in your documentary, if I'm right, because after I watched both of yours, I went down the rabbit hole further and watched a few others, right? And I went on and watched Marketing the Messiah as well, because I was like, I just was like, keep feeding me, and it was said that back then, a long time ago, if a banker couldn't pay you back and you lost that trust, he'd be hung. And apparently, does that still apply now? Because I had spoke to someone who said, that's still in legislation or something. Obviously, I can't imagine they would hang someone, but there is that lack of, pitchfork. Wait a minute, what's going on here? And it is just is it the dumbing down of the people?
Yeah, I think we're just at a level of acceptance in society now. That we just accept the fact that we get shafted left, right, and center, and it's just the way it is.
Which is convenient, because the system is so complicated that nobody really fully understands how money is created, and my film does an okay job, but even scratches the surface. And the more complicated it is, the more easier it is to kind of fool and people, which is, by the way, a common criticism about Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is so complicated, you need 200 hours to understand it. Well, do you really understand how your credit card works? Do you really understand how the British pound works? I mean, it's you have to invest some time, I guess, to understand. But actually, I was going to ask you guys, because you're film experts. So if I'm going to do another documentary in the future, how would you do you like that Cryptopia style, like kind of an investigative journalist kind of trying to figure out things, asking tough questions, but also being a fan of it? Like, does that kind of chemistry work, or what would you recommend me doing for the next one?
Me personally, I'll speak for myself first. I'm a big fan of this type of thing. I'm a big fan of long form conversation as opposed to just quick fire. short snippets. So I think a lot of the time, basically because of the time constraints of a document, you can't sit down to a 15-hour documentary. It's not possible. But I think maybe a series as opposed to a single documentary could work a lot better, because you could have longer conversations and more information in there. They could maybe give some more scope and context to the truth bombs that are getting thrown at you. Like it's a lot of, here's some information, but it'd be good to have more background behind each piece of info. And I think with more long form conversations and over the space of maybe a 10 episode miniseries, that could work. That's my thing.
Yeah, I would totally agree, because when I had finished your documentaries, I was still hungry, so I went looking for other people's. You see, I was still hungry. I still felt like, even though you'd kind of given me everything that I needed to really know kind of what was going on, I still wanted more from it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, thanks for that. And have you guys seen Seaspiracy on Netflix?
Yes. They should have called that Conspiracy, though, right?
Yeah, Conspiracy, exactly. Why not?
Where's Cole when you need him?
I know. And so what I noticed is they literally, they have so much information there. I was very impressed, and some of it nicely like animated and things like that. But they just throw an expert at you that says like 12 seconds of, okay, this is how it works in the human body. And then she never appears again. And I didn't even have time to read. But actually, I mean, because they wanted to get all that information in one documentary, and that sentence was important to the story. So you have to kind of, have those trade-offs. And it's impossible to find the 100% right balance for everyone, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's like, it would almost be like using a 1 hour or 90-minute documentary as a Kickstarter for a series. And that's another option. Also, I forgot what I was going to say. So, Kevin, go.
You could do a series of podcasts, like what we're doing now, but like from you. Imagine if you took your next installment, right, of cryptocurrency and the story you want to tell, and you produce it like podcasts, as opposed to, podcasting is still kind of early to the point where you don't really get a lot of monetary gain. Now you can on YouTube, you can kind of get your. But if it's the message, I think like a 10-part podcast series, and what I find is that a lot of times when something's been a podcast, it gets picked up because the story was so great, and bigger production companies and stuff pick that up and make it into something bigger. I know that it's happened, but for me, like if you told me right now, Kevin, you didn't know this, but I'd done actual 10 episodes of a podcast, I'd be like, I'd have downloaded it before you finished the sentence. Do you know what I mean? so I think just as much people are where we're at now, especially now during lockdown, people are consuming content continuously, right? If I'm not with my kids or with someone, I'll always have headphones on because I'm continuously listening. And storytelling at the heart of everything, storytelling is what people are attracted to, regardless of what it is. It's a story. A song is a story, movie is a story, your documentary is a story, a podcast is a story. Everything's a story. And I think, how do we tell it? And for podcasting, everybody now is listening, and like you see now, you can watch it as well. So you can play clips. I think the way that we consume, and as well, I can dedicate an hour to listening while I'm cleaning the house, right? I might not have that hour right now to sit down and watch something, and if you're consuming them in blocks of hours, I think it absorbs a lot easier. Sorry, J-Mac, you were going to say something, weren't you?
No, that's basically what I was going to say, is the format of a podcast has changed so much over the last few years, thanks to people like Joe Rogan. It moved away from just being an audio thing you'd listen to on your way to work or whatever, to being your night's entertainment. You can get home from work and you will sit down and watch a 3-hour show of an interview with one person. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see you on Rogan and within the next 6 months.
Well, wow.
With YouTube views like you're getting, and with the fact that the film is gone to the Al Jazeera and stuff like that, it's not inconceivable. So I don't know.
Sure, Cole can hook you up.
You might well be at the start of the podcast ride.
Yeah,
it would be interesting.
So well said. I think That's a great way to leave it. And then when I come back with my new film, let's pick it up from exactly that point.
Right. Absolutely. Is there anything you can tell us on your next film at all?
Yeah, no, it's still early days. I'm still trying to develop the story a bit more, getting some funding. I mean, funding is always the tricky bit. You guys know about the filmmaking part, but I'm one of those filmmakers who likes to keep control and likes to then own the rights and the IP, not like give it to Netflix and then I never ever see it again. So it's harder in the beginning, but yeah, hopefully I'll be back with a new one in a couple of 2 years time, 1 year's time, who knows.
Yeah, well, we'll need to have you back on as well, because I'll be waiting to watch that. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
I hope you had as much fun as we did. This was
that's awesome.
This was a blast, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
so Torsten, thanks very much for coming on. It has been a blast. There's been a lot of information. Again, the good thing is you can keep listening to this podcast over and over again. Keep watching it over and over again. Every view counts. So,
and by the way, every thumbs up, every like, every IMDb thing or Amazon rating, everything counts to get us up the algorithms for your podcast, but also for my film.
And for yourself. Yeah, so anybody watching at home should definitely go and check out both of your documentaries. Like we said, we've got Bitcoin, The End of Money as We Know It, and Cryptopia, which is blockchains. I think that's small, right? Was it blockchains, Bitcoin, and what was the last?
Bitcoin, blockchains, and the future of the internet.
But if you type in Cryptopia, you will find it straight away. It's the first one that comes up. It's the easiest watch because you don't have to. It is mapped out in front of you. It will make talking about Bitcoin more interesting with your friends because you'll learn something from both of these documentaries. So that when you go to your friend and they don't know a thing, you'll seem like the smart guy, and then they'll go and watch it, and you can have a proper conversation about it.
Yeah, you can sit back with your pipe and say, I've just I watched this thing.
I've just learned about Bitcoin. I might be investing soon. It's definitely so you definitely have served a purpose to the movement that is Bitcoin by helping people understand it. And who'd have thought that two movie guys that usually laugh and do silly jokes on a podcast would be excited to talk about Bitcoin, and that's something that you and your team have done, so we can only thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks so much for this. A great evening. This was fun, and see you soon.
Absolutely, Torsten. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
The rest of the night, guys.
Bye.